um, I, uh, I do monitor a lot of traffic, and one that I have mentioned in the past is uh, mass media, particularly the sports revenue. Fox Sports, ESPN, right? You know, ESPN's like CNN. They're all under one corporate umbrella, right? The AI stuff. Um, so if you know the history of the CIA, you know the history of UPI, right? United Press International. What's an API? That's an AI programming interface. API, right? Yeah. Associated Press International, same outfit. Like Network News, same outfit. It's mass media density population programming because the programming has to do with the density that's being programmed for you to experience that density. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. But what I do is because I grew up around and I love to be active because I love to swim, I love to play. I'm like a little child that loves to play with everything. It's like a playmate. I play with dogs. I roll around in the dirt with lions, big cats, play with elephants. It's like a nature boy is like a Tarzan and Jane built in one, right? So that would describe me. Okay. So you just love to have fun. So I played a lot of sports when I was young. And so naturally on the TV, you were hammered with it because this is like what we call role models. Remember Shakespeare? All the world's a stage. Now you get into books, now you get into actors, now you get into actresses, now you're into the Roman arena, right? Gladiators, right? Amusement parks, just a different form of music wearing a different set of costumes. Okay, but what do you see happening? Well, as a post that I just put up on there, I says these football players, okay, are essentially abusing themselves. And now you're going to have to go all the way back and see how all of this is tied to all the operating systems that are connected to all the other operating systems from which those memories, which represent the program codes of abuse after abuse after abuse after abuse, that's carried over from one generation to the next through the cellular memory through which they're all associated, which are the circulation libraries that people are connected to, which are the records that we have access to, see? So, and I know that just from the way I've described how I experienced being on this planet, which I measure in resistance. There is in this planet to experience a hell of a lot higher vibration wherever you go on the planet that you're experiencing through others, right? So the reason that I'm bringing this up is because there's a guy by the name of Skip Bayless, which for all intents and purposes, he's just doing his job, right? So if you're a compassionate observer where you're simply observing the behavior of somebody else that's in your mirror, you're just observing the behavior. What is the behavior doing? What is the communication? What is the communication taking place? So in this particular case, this particular guy has been like he's a reporter. Report, like Minority Report. Remember Minority Report with Tom Cruise, right? Go out there and tweak that cyborg. Something's going on there with his program. It's not obeying the rules. So what you have here is he's part of the mass media, like mass population density, mass media population density, just like there's food density networks based on the food that you're eating, based on the species that you are within the food chain. You know, lions eat what lions eat, zebras eat what zebras eat, sauropods eat what sauropods eat. Right? Okay, so it comes out the back pipe, which is, you know, a wastewater treatment center, right? So it ends up back in a wastewater recycling center of the planet based on the pH, right? So what you have here is a B-Al game because they play football games in bowls, unless they're practicing out on a field like a high school football field, not as much. But these are like big energy concentration centers, right? So you're experiencing all this force against force and the injuries taking place. Oh, and you know, you can measure all this on a log scale table, a distribution graph, loss and gain of light, electrons, right? Because people getting injured, slammed around. Oh, Jesus. I know what it's like because I played Pop Warner football and had steel cleats on my feet, you know, having the wind knocked out of me. And realize that you're being a gladiator. You know, you're just suffering more abuse, physical abuse or emotional abuse. Hey, did you really mean to hit me that way? No, we're just playing football. Don't take it personal. Okay. talk to the, what was it, about the 1970 Oakland Raiders, the reputation that they had, right? You know what they call the Chicago Bears, the monsters of the Midway? They even had a definition that humans were monsters. They're inverted. See, you think they're human because they look like us, but they do things that we would never do to another soul. They represent killing fields, so they run war machine factories. It's all about money and power, right? So all they do is these are nothing more than the actors that are on the stage to play football, right? Upon which the mob makes a killing, not just from everybody going into that ballpark, eating all the stuff that they eat there, get your hot dogs here, get your programs here. And that's exactly what they're saying. You're programmed to do this, so get your program here so you can keep following the program, which is a numbers game because the AI claims house. The gambling casino, the mob, the Vatican, all them folks, right? Why do you think they call it First Take? ESPN First Take. We get the first take. We take the chunk out of you. You get what's left, what crumbs we leave you. So those are bigger vampires, bigger vamps. Remember Sarah said, or Rachel said, bigger vamps, bigger vampires. That's what you, if you've ever worked for a corporation, that's what you find, which means that everybody underneath the biggest vamp is expendable. Because once more light comes in, and the little vamps can no longer feed on the bigger amps of the light, then what's left is the biggest vampire. Okay, so now you're back to force against the light, which you see in Star Wars with the Sith Lords, that episode that they did with the Sith Lords. What was that? The Rise of Skywalker. How much light can be brought to bear, right? There he goes. That's really what it is. You know, as how much energy can be brought to bear in an energy war to stop all the wars. What energy you think is the most powerful energy to bring that to bear? And that's what love is. How much of that energy is here, right? To bring peace to a planet instead of killing it off. That's the truth of it, right? So what I do is I monitor this conversation that's going on right now with Skip Bayless. He's being outed, if you understand what I mean. What I notice is the changes in the words that they use and how those words are associated with the numbers of why they're communicating, the changes that are in the way that they are communicating, the words that they're using, because others that are watching that mirror are now experiencing the changes and the differences to which how they talk and communicate with each other. So those that are the normal subscribers of those that are hooked and attracted to this might not be able to read the tea leaves, but what you realize that they're taking words from which comes out of our community is now being sprinkled in their community, and now it's coming out in like mixed language. Remember? Truth and lies, truth is mixed with lies, right? How things get inverted. So that's what you're noticing. That's what I begin to notice. Is that the stuff that we experience, that we share and communicate in the spiritual community is now going through their community, but in a different way. So now this is sort of like reading code. Code talkers. So what's happening now is that during this last football game last week with the Buffalo Bills, and I forget the other team that was playing them, there was a player that went down with a cardiac arrest. An ambulance came out on the field. Apparently CPR was administered. I wasn't there, so I didn't see it directly. Okay? But I was trained in CPR. I started out when I was a child being a lifeguard. So I figure y'all know what a lifeguard is. That's living energy, is protecting living energy. You want to be a lifeguard. That's like a guardian. I was born to be a guardian. In a pool, right? And that's what it is. It's the mother and father in you that wants to protect everything that's alive and living in nature, because that's the world you're giving love to, right? So in this particular case, this guy went down. So now what you had was Skip Bayless, who commented on his tweet, and this wouldn't be a coincidence. This is exactly what he said. What he said is what he communicated, which means I am what I'm saying, and that's what it is. I mean what I say. Because he was asked the next day on his show, which is Undisputed with Shannon Sharpe, a Hall of Famer, He wasn't very happy about it, but Skip says, I stand by what I said. And what his statement basically meant is that never in the history of the NFL have they ever stopped a game, particularly a playoff game, when a player has been injured onto the field, because in Skip's mind, the next player is up. Because, in other words, the band will go on. The money machine has to go on. That's why we're here, because you're all a commodity. Because you're all tradable on the chopping block of Wall Street. Because you bring a certain value to the market, therefore you're a market, you're a commodity on that football field. So what ends up happening is these football players are real people playing this game. They have feelings. They care about each other. They realize the grind they got to go through. So you can imagine how some of these guys like Draymond Green on his show, his podcast, was talking about Skip Bayless, who's talking about, hey, how come they weren't doing this? So the next day, Skip Bayless with Shannon Sharpe. Shannon, as a matter of fact, didn't even show up for the show the next day. When he showed up the day after that, that's like, wow, a football player who knows what it's like to be injured. He's had a hip replacement. He's had Achilles heel. Football players get injured a lot. The average life expectancy of a football player is only 3.5 years. Because of all the physical damage it's done. It's a tough game. These are gladiators. Guys that work out in the gym, run 50 miles a day, stuff like that. Right? So, yeah, these are like Olympic athletes. I know that because I was an athlete. Right? So I played in a lot of sports and I know what it means to be an athlete. It means you got an enormous amount of energy. You have an enormous amount of physical agility. Okay? Your hand-eye coordination is very quick. Okay, so you realize you're going up against other quickness and your physical ability to be able to move and use your mind because you're navigating a field in which you're playing a game and you're competing against each other in a physical and a mental way. So this is quickness stuff. What's your agility? Not only your physical agility, but your mind's agility. It's like playing a chess game. You're in a war game because you're competing against each other. Right? So this is like skill level against skill level. So in this particular case, football is like deliberately hurting yourself in order to put points on the board upon which the gambling casino makes a fortune. See? So you know where all that starts from, right? All the abuse stuff that's running through the system. That's right. That's exactly right. I know that because I've heard all their stories. And not only that, but there was a guy that wrote a book. The FBI knows how corrupted that the entire NFL is. It's the same mob that runs Reno, Vegas, all our gambling casinos. Okay, whose energy do you think they're gambling away? Ours. Soul energy. We're the creditors for all this. Did you know that? Everything that they lose, we got to replenish. That's exactly right. So now we have Draymond Green, who is with Stephen A. Smith, who used to be on host with Mr. Bayless before Bayless went to Fox, when Bayless was with Stephen A. Smith, who was at ESPN, okay, who does First Take. So Stephen A. Smith is well known in all the sports arena, particularly the NBA. Now it's with Draymond. Draymond saying, where is this man's compassion? Doesn't this guy realize how can a football player down on the field ever take another snap after what just happened to one of their brothers? Where's your compassion? You think the quarterback can go back and as if nothing's happened to a player that just got rolled off the field after having a heart attack? And you think, yeah, we're just going to go play again because we got to do that. What is the matter with this man? That's called being outed. Okay? Because it used to be that Skip Bayless had a lot of power amongst those networks because of who he represented. And if you go back to some of the old film from the ESPN days, he was known as a